Isla. Well, hey, thanks again for joining me to sit down to talk. I know we talked a few weeks ago, uh, and in that sort of brief kind of get to know each other call, I remember even saying out loud, like, "Hey, I think that I think this would make for a great episode to kind of go deeper and
Sure.
have a conversation with you for the podcast." Um, so, actually, before we get into all of the details of your story and this, and the story of your company and sort of your journey, I was wondering if you could give just kind of the quick elevator pitch for U4U, and let people know what your company is, what you do, and who's your audience, who do you serve?
Absolutely. And thank you. Thank you for having me. It's great I
Yeah.
enjoyed our conversation before, and it's great to be here with you. I really love your work. So, quick elevator pitch is U4U is the first social wellness platform for teen girls. Teen girls are the demographic experiencing the most severe mental health crisis of any other demographic and the highest treatment costs of any other group of people. So, they're desperate for a solution, and I'm very excited to offer them U4U in a way that really speaks to girls and it's preventative. We're meeting them on the early side and different than any other solution out there. We're not crisis based. We are clinical and evidence based on the inside, but fun and engaging for girls on the outside. So I look forward to telling you more.
Yeah. And before we kind of get too much into the details of exactly how, uh, how those communities work, how people get involved, and some of the work that you're doing, I want to take a couple like really big steps back, kind of in your story, and just kind of hear about before starting U4U. What were you doing at that time? What were you doing professionally? What were sort of like your origin story as a founder that kind of led you to start the company?
Sure. Well, and I can say I actually have wanted to build U4U since I was a teen girl myself.
Mm,
So it started very early, but my experience beforehand that has contributed so well to building it is I've worked in business, I've worked in entrepreneurship, and I've worked in youth empowerment. So, through many, many years of being an innovation and growth consultant, I focused on solving problems or building products that meet big needs for big companies, Microsoft, Unilever's, these large companies, but bringing together all that skill and applying it to a topic, youth empowerment, youth engagement, change management, innovation, to come together for U4U. So I've also been a professional dancer. I taught in dance companies for many years. I've been a girls basketball coach for a long time, a Girl Scout troop leader for over 8 years. So a lot of engagement and empowerment for youth in my history, as well as aligned with entrepreneurship and solving problems and creating
hmm
opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you had the idea, or at least a desire to build something like U4U for a long time.
Yeah.
Did you always, from what you can remember, did you always have the that sort of entrepreneurial spirit? Is that kind of how you always saw the world? Because I think a lot of
Oh,
founders either always have that, or like one moment comes up that sort of thrusts them kind of into that world. How would you kind of describe your
I definitely
relationship
fit in the
to that?
first camp. I've always been an entrepreneur
Yeah.
from, taking on any job that my brother would turn down, from gardening to anything to,
Yeah.
starting one of the earliest versions of home delivery. I've always had entrepreneurship. And the thing that for me has always been interesting about it though has been, you know, solving something that other people maybe can't think they can't or aren't, and the bigger the problem, the better. And that's again why this topic in supporting girls came to me so early, and I saw it as the hugest opportunity. It's been something that's always been my kind of calling and passion, because the concept that supporting a girl, teen girl at this stage in her life, that's a huge synergetic impact that we can be making. They're going to go on to have babies, to lead their family. Females lead in our communities, our schools. And so yes, the first question, I've always, since a young age, had entrepreneurial instinct in my blood, and then tying it to this passion has always been present for me.
Yeah. Um, and then I was wondering if you could take me to the moment, I think kind of in your story when U4U stopped being just an idea and then started being something that you started to look at and saying, okay, this is like necessary. This is immediate. I have to do this, and to where it started going from kind of just idea to, all right, how might this look as an actual company?
Yeah, great question. And it's COVID. And
Yeah.
but possibly not for the reason that you're thinking, I'll say. I mean, many people recognize that COVID was the moment when the youth mental health crisis became widely publicized. But for me, it's something slightly different. It's the fact that COVID created this accessibility for youth that I hadn't seen before. So many youth were all of a sudden on screens, on their own devices that they had access to at home and at school. And this whole new kind of market opened up in ed tech, in being able to recognize that we can do more online with youth, and there's an accessibility that we haven't had before. So for me, that was the big moment, bringing my innovation space like, oh, look, all of a sudden we can help young people when they need it. They're used to being online now. Now all of a sudden over 95% have access to technology and we can meet them in the moment they need. So that was the moment for me.
Yeah. Um, and a question that I ask a lot of founders is, what did the sort of like early kind of research look like? And a
Oh,
lot of times for founders, that I mean, that's more like researching, making sure that there actually is a problem, and
yeah.
what. But in your case, I think it's like it was pretty obvious that there was a problem, and you had a pretty good idea of the solution. But I'm sure the details of how you attack it and how you like get started required a bit of research and having a lot of
Yeah.
conversations. Like, what did that kind of look like for you?
Yeah. And I mean that has been my expertise, and that's something I've always loved to do and was paid very well to do is it's just to kind of fully understand the problem, the opportunity, and then how to create a solution that can scale and even financially support itself. But for me, that started like a ton of interviews, tons
Hmm.
and tons of interviews with girls, with parents, with teachers, with politicians, with psychologists, with the whole key, range of stakeholders, and also reading a lot of research reports and then just diving really deep into why, all this statistic is there, how poorly girls' mental health is. And I'm reading firsthand stories in every neighborhood amongst every demographic of young person, so this is not something only affecting a segment of our youth population across the board. And I focused really down to like, why? What are they feeling before I could come up with a solution? And really narrowed in the fact that young people, young girls are feeling anxious, they're feeling lonely, and they're feeling hopeless. And you think, oh well, yeah, but really, when you look at those three things in detail, it becomes sad, but
Hmm.
also then it allowed me to be able to focus on how we can help them with those kind of core things. So it was really about doing tons of research, drilling down to the heart of the problem, and then trying to understand how we could work on that. And I don't know if you want me to talk about that next phase, but I
Yeah.
can.
Yeah. Well, I did have one quick follow-up question is like during that sort of research phase and doing all those interviews, the answer to this question might be a little bit of what you already just said, but was there anything else that surprised you? Because I'm sure you go into it with a lot of a hypothesis and a lot of assumptions,
Sure.
but did anything come out of it that you were that maybe you just weren't expecting that
Mm.
gave you some ideas about how to kind of move into that next phase that you're talking about?
Yeah. Yeah, the hopelessness piece was surprising to me. I thought, oh, mental health, yeah, hormonal challenges, society can be tough, these different things. But this level of hopelessness, I hadn't really thought about so much. And a lot of the research and the clarity around it came from the fact that they're exposed to so much more than, for example, myself was as a young person, or historically we have been exposed to with media the way it is, and then with school shootings, and then with climate change and these topics. And yet, when I dug again further into that and understood, speaking to psychologists and psychiatrists, that their brains aren't prepared to deal with all those crises so often, that was a finding that I hadn't expected. And it brings challenge when you're thinking about utilizing technology, which is something that's to be able to help someone when you can see that that technology is also causing much of the problem, which I had also already known. I knew social media was a huge
Hmm.
culprit here. So but not, but beyond social media, just, the kind of societal aggregation of information and trauma that these young people are hearing about. So
Yeah.
that was beyond my hypothesis. That was new for me.
Yeah. And what about the sort of age range that that you were kind of focused on? I'm assuming because it's technology and social media, like those are components to all of this, that might have kind of steered you to a pretty specific age range. But like, how much of that did you explore?
Yeah. No, I explored it a lot, many people have always told me, it's much easier if you start at age 13, because
Hmm.
of tech, COPA and different. But from all the research and from everything I understood, I knew we have to start earlier. We have to start, at the key kind of start of adolescence, 10, 11, and so we did, U4U is focused for age 11 and up, and it's also trend and it's relative to adolescence, so the developmental phase. It's also relative to the key transition that takes place at that stage when they're going from elementary school into middle school.
Hmm.
Huge moment and so much happening there. Um, yeah, so those were some key. And then, oh yeah, there was one other thing I was going to mention on that, which is statistics, which I had understood around the arrival of mental health issues, and the statistic that about 50% of mental health issues arrive around age 14, 75% by the end of adolescence, around age 19, 20. So then
Oh,
I thought, wow, here's the opportunity, right? Let's meet these young people earlier. Let's try and avoid that 15, 14-year-old, and spoke to many psychologists and psychiatrists about that topic, and many of them influenced me and helped create that awareness, as well as that motivation to, yes, this is when we need to start. This is when we need to start engaging from a way
hmm.
that's going to help prevent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other question is, and I have to kind of remind myself the sort of point in time when you're doing all of this, and it wasn't today or last year, it was a number of years ago. What did it look like for like what the landscape look like for ways that young teens or young girls could like get help at that time? And obviously there's like very uh sort of obvious normal channels, like sort of traditional mental health, like assistance that kids might be able to get. But beyond that, like what were the other options that kids had at that time? And was it, unfortunately, like sadly, probably a lot of it's just like do nothing, that there
Yeah.
was not really anything to solve that exact problem.
Yeah.
I'm guessing you looked into that quite a bit
Oh
also.
yeah. I,
Yeah.
I love that question, and it's also from my work in innovation and growth. That's one of the first and one of my favorite exercises, to look at, what's happening, what other solutions are out there, but then to do something even more fun. And this is part of the innovation process for any other founders. But
Yeah.
look at what's happening in other industries, and what things are working in other industries.
Mm.
So I definitely looked at other things that are out there. I looked at other. I looked at what social media was doing for the good and the bad, because there's some way they're captivating and trapping them there, right? There's some parts of it that they really like and want and crave. So it's like, what can we take from that, but then eliminate the bad stuff from it?
Hmm.
So we looked at that. I looked at other platforms that were helping with change management. So I have a background in change management. Of course, a component of helping somebody avoid mental health is changing some patterns, or if they're already in a state of poor mental health, like helping them change the patterns. So I looked at other platforms that were helping that, and I looked, specifically at Duolingo, and saw how the scientific, B equals MAT. There's a formula developed by one of Stanford professors, whereby micro engagements over experience, extended period of time, repeatedly, can help change behaviors and create new habits and healthy habits. So definitely looked at what they were doing. Then also looked at real life things that are happening now that didn't happen in the past, or things that happened in the past that aren't happening now, that might have helped youth in the past avoid. And for that, I specifically looked at sports teams and how those have changed, and the fact that in the past they were a great sense of community and mental support, helped eliminate anxiety, helped eliminate loneliness, helped inspire hope, right? But
Hmm.
now sporting teams have become so competitive and exclusive, they're not available and accessible to all, that they're almost contributing to some of the problem. Then looked at other things like social clubs, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, Rotary Club, youth groups, and many of those have maybe not kept as close of pace with time, and so their populations have declined. Also, they're not as accessible with the way our world is moving, like, kind of quicker now. So
Hmm.
yeah, so that was the process for me.
Yeah, that to me, that's a super interesting topic. I could probably talk about that for a while. Looking
Me
at
too.
something like social media, or maybe for younger kids, like screen time, and just like how I think intuitively know social media probably not that good for people. All the screen time not that good. But if you and I've talked with a couple of founders who have sort of said, all right, well, let's take that. That might be true, but let's figure out a way to have a social component of social media,
Yeah.
but like put those guardrails in and make it a super positive thing. And same with screen time. Like screen time can be positive if it's used in the right way for young kids. So I love that idea of taking things that are maybe not so great, but like sort of reverse engineering how to use it for good. And then
Yeah.
the total inverse of that is something where sports, yes, being on a sports team used to be this really great positive like thing with tons of positive, and now it's sort of kind of gone too far and there's a lot of
Yeah.
negatives, and it's like, all right, well, let's just like look at kind of sort of in a lab what made it great in the beginning, and then sort of apply that to a business, a company,
Yes.
even the product marketing, whatever it might be. To me, that's a super interesting way to look at any sort of it doesn't even have to be tech, any kind of a product.
Yes, yes, they're exactly. It's like taking the components from each of those things that are good or not so good, and kind of working with that. Like within U4U, we put girls in houses, and those houses compete against other houses, but it's not
Hmm.
individual one on one. So they're on a team. So young people who have never had a chance to be on a positive, supportive team, they get that kind
Yeah.
of feeling in a micro way here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I completely agree. And it's been fascinating and exciting to see how it is truly effective.
Yeah, and that's probably a good segue into kind of the very first like iteration, the first version of U4U, when you like put a pin, drew a line in the sand, a pin in the ground, whatever the saying is,
Yeah.
and you said, okay, here's version one. What did that look like at the time?
Yeah, well, and I'll bring in another interesting piece here. I actually started an original version of U4U in the early 2000s as an
Mm,
in-person community. I was in London. I had finished my MBA, and I created U4U. We had 600 girls go through our program in 6 months. Partnerships with MTV, Natural History Museum. It was fantastic, but the scalability wasn't there, and the accessibility was very hard. So, I kind of took all the learnings. And kind of put pause for a second. Again, post COVID, that's when I was like, oh, here we go. Now
yeah.
we've got the opportunity. The first iteration, I don't know if I've ever shared this with anybody, but
Mm,
I drew out what we're going to, I did all the interviews, worked out how the framework of this could work. And then I just kept thinking, how can I do like a down dirty version of this? How can I test this and see? And so I utilized Instagram, and I set up basically a U4U house within an Instagram. I advertised it, and I set the corporation up so that I could do this kind of safely and
yeah.
with some guardrails for myself in place. And I basically promoted it, had some girls apply, come on board, and I basically ran a version of U4U app through Instagram.
Mm,
These girls were so engaged. I was just surprised. The kind of micro beta went better than I could have expected. So then it was like, okay, yeah, we've got a lot of proof here. I
yeah.
began kind of testing the market. I spoke with heads of counseling departments with high schools, like, is there a willingness to pay for this? Like, spoke with parents, would you pay for this? What would you pay for? So understood that, did some market research on that as well. And then the next version was pulling together wireframes and building a web app, and kind of setting a goal, 200 users, achieve that goal, and then kind of brings us to the next phase where we are now. We've kind of rebuilt on that,
Hmm.
improved, pulled out, added components, and then actually in a couple of weeks we're launching the full app in App Store for the first
Yeah.
time.
Oh, awesome. Yeah,
Yeah,
and I'm definitely curious. I have a lot of obviously I'm a marketing guy. I've worked in marketing my whole career. So either that first like micro beta, or even the first iteration where you kind of had the goal of, I think you said 200
yeah.
uh 200 users. what did like what was the very first step to say, all right, let's here's how we go out and reach them? Because anytime you're marketing and it's for kids, or even if you're going like marketing to the parents for the kids, like it's always a little tricky. So like how did you navigate that? What was the way
Yeah.
that the marketing stuff that you did to go out and find those really early users?
Yeah. Well, the one good but bad side about Instagram is, they're there. That's where they all are. All of
Yeah,
my girls are there. And now, there's, Snap, and there's other things there, of course, but that's, particularly a couple years ago, the number one place where they were. So that's where I said, well, we'll target there. And it was actually at that time 2 years ago, you could actually target to age 13 to 18. Now you can't. Thank you,
yeah,
Instagram. I mean, it's definitely a harmful marketing
yeah,
element against me, but it's protective against young people.
yeah.
So I was able to boost posts and post targeting that demographic. But even to this day, we post on Instagram, and if I spent, I was monitoring and measuring this as well. If I spent $1 boosting a post, I would have one new user onboarded.
Mm,
So it was quite effective to understand where my target market was,
yep.
and to just uh, focus my marketing attention there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when you kind of moved things away from Instagram, kind of that micro beta to a web app, what were there different marketing challenges that you had, or is it more just kind of moving people from one one place to the newer platform?
Yeah, I think, one of the challenges was, again, realizing and having the fortune that I can market there because that's where a big group of my users are. But then one challenge was getting those younger ages, the
Mm,
11 to 13 year olds. And luckily they're not as active on Instagram. Thank goodness. Hopefully that doesn't change. So then it was kind of like, well, how will we get that messaging across? And it was about, we tried going to parents to kind of prompt them to recognize. We tried going to schools, and we did have a lot of success going to events focused. We went to some teen girl conferences, we went to some youth job fairs. Those were both very successful. Parents were tricky. I think parents, my interpretation is they have a lot of noise. I'm a parent as well. And so initially was thinking they're going to love this. This is just what they need for their daughters. But we didn't get we had kind of poor outcome from our marketing to parents. So,
yeah,
yeah. And then schools, they're very busy, but we understood if we go through the students or if we go through events, the students are very excited to hear about U4U.
yeah,
But yeah.
yeah. And how I'm just kind of curious, how did you sort of s- explain in like the very early days, like what the company is, what like if you were talking to a parent, what did that sort of pitch look like? And then I guess part two of the question is like when you were pitching more to a school or like some kind of like a partnership, how much of that did that have to be different, and how much of it was the
Yeah.
same, I guess.
No, I would say it's quite different. And
Yeah,
initially, we were doing it quite similarly between parents and schools, but we did understand we needed to adjust it. And one of the and of course very differently to girls. For
yeah,
girls, we're talking about a sorority. For teen girls, we're talking about your home away from home. We're talking about a modern day Girl Scouts. We're talking about something fun and engaging, nothing mental health. With schools and parents, we were primarily talking about the mental health of teen girls is very poor. This impacts their entire life. It impacts their academics. It impacts their well-being. And the messaging was effective with schools. They understood because they feel it. And we did have to definitely amplify the impacts of their mental wellness on their academics because of course they have performance goals. With parents, that route we understood didn't work quite well at all. And again, we've recently kind of readjusted, because I think as parents we have a tendency to assume it's not, that's not going to be a challenge that my daughter faces. That's going to be
Yeah.
maybe something other daughters have. And so we more so started adjusting our conversation to success, her success. And parents interpret that differently. Some of them it is their mental health success, some of them it is making sure they succeed in school and making sure they succeed in their future or college. So yeah, that's kind of our marketing journey, which we're still on. We're very
Yeah.
much in.
Yeah. I know that. And that comes up all the time when I ask some of these questions, because that marketing journey never ends, even if you
Sure.
grow the business beyond your wildest dream or expectation of what the company can do. Like that marketing
Yeah.
uh, puzzle never quite gets solved. That's kind of the point of it.
Yeah.
But
Well, thank goodness for you for things like that.
yeah, right, right. When you, I am curious though, when you were having some of the like the really early conversations with parents, or I guess parents, partners, whoever it might be, did you know? Was there anything that kind of again kind of surprised you when you were talking about like now that you had a quote unquote product, an actual thing? Was there confusion about what exactly it was about? Because the reason I ask this because I think a lot of founders are. It's easy to kind of give the high level kind of elevator pitch of like what your company does at high level, but the second you start to get in the weeds, there can be confusion sometimes of like, well, what? Hold on, like, what's the actual experience? What is my
Oh,
daughter going to
sure.
be doing or not doing? Do I do anything? Like, did anything come up consistently where you said, okay, there's definitely some confusion here and here and here. We have to kind of think about how we get some clarity with our marketing or just talking about the product?
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean that, because, and the point is, and I say, we could have made a simpler product, but it wouldn't be as effective as the product that we have. So, there were some advisors who kind of told us just narrow it down, scale it down, take out some of the features. And I'm like, no, each of those features has been extensively thought through and is
Yeah.
key. So, from a marketing perspective, we could be doing things easier, but we've chosen not to because of the effectiveness. And indeed, parents have been confused about components, and I think there's that motion where they preconceive what they think it should be or what they want it to be. And then I think there's also that very initial coming in here with like no trust, like, what are you trying to pull over on? Or
Yeah.
what are you trying to advertise to my kid, or those kind of feelings. So but the confusion for us has been around, um there's a house lead and there's sisters within our platform. So there is moments for users to connect with other people. And so there's been a lot of kind of concern and confusion around how that takes place, how safe that is, how people are matched, how people are trained, all of those pieces. And I think that's been the key component. I mean, with U4U app, we have challenges, we have micro engagements, those little activities, we call them challenges that users do. We have mood and a sleep check in. That's pretty clear and simple. We have a feed where people can see each other's responses to those activities, those little micro challenges. And then we have this house lead and these sisters where they can message against. And the house lead is a college student, so it's kind of a near peer. And then
Hmm.
the sisters are peer pen pals.
Yeah.
So as you can see, there are basically four pieces which lend to four opportunities for confusion. Um,
Hmm. Yeah.
but I would say that moment where there's connection between two human beings has been the moment that has been um, kind of drawn the most questions from
Hmm.
parents.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, that's just part of that never ending sort of strive for clarity, strive for perfection. It's like the saying, perfection
Yeah,
doesn't exist, but you can, always strive for it. I think with
yeah,
marketing, it's the same thing, striving for that clarity that never ends.
yeah,
I'm also curious about when you had a lot of these conversations with parents and you obviously built kind of version one of the product and people were um, starting to use it, and you even mentioned that there's different features that you knew were vital to be kind of part of the overall product. Was there anything that surprised you about once you started getting users and either how they were using it, maybe something different than you expected, or like anything else that surprised you at that point?
Um, I guess we had a little disconnect initially. We kind of skewed our content younger, assuming, we were kind of
Hmm.
hoping we would be attracting more younger. And then, of course, Instagram has slightly older. So, and then I was slightly surprised by the fact that the users really want that content quite tailored to their, they want the design to look like
Hmm.
they like. They want the messaging and the wording and the text
Yep.
to be in line with their kind of stage. So, and we understood, but that, there's the two distinct stages of the middle school and the high school,
Hmm.
were slightly more different than I had expected they would be.
Hmm. Yeah. And then in terms of like the most important kind of metrics that you had at that time, obviously like growing your like user base and getting more people using it and getting feedback and improving, the product continually. That's obviously the goal. But were there m- metrics that you looked at to tell you that either something was working or not working, or that if you needed to adjust anything with the product or the
Yeah.
marketing, even like what were the things that you were kind of mostly looking at that time?
Yeah, I mean, of course, engagement. So how long they're staying, and then what they're doing in the app. And then I kind of mentioned it earlier, but kind of the backbone, or indeed the pillars of U4U. Our four pillars are helping girls grow, and the four pillars are strong self, connection, culture, and environment. So individual, us together, us all, and then us all here on Earth. And
Hmm.
so we did measure each of those challenges is linked to one of those four pillars, and so we did measure the challenges being completed by the users. And we come to understand that the environment challenges were just being ignored. Like, it was surprising to me. I guess I had an assumption that the young people would be more inclined to engage with some of those environmental pieces. But I think, as we looked into it more, it aligns with what's happening. It aligns with the IRL, the in real life
Hmm.
movement, that the young people are not spending time outside. They have no connection to nature, to the environment. And so we understood that we needed to make adjustments for that. So that was
Hmm.
something we were measuring and monitoring, how they were engaging with our content, which ones they were doing the most, and which ones they were not doing. And yeah, that was a distinct learning, and something that we responded to and continue to respond to.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, Sort of a different type of question, but
Yeah.
one that I like to ask for founders when we're talking about the first sort of stage of like the company is I think being a founder of any company of any size, it's stressful, and there's times where you're questioning like, oh my gosh, are we going down the like are we going down the right path? We are continuously finding times where you could go in different paths, and you sort of have to
Oh,
pick one. And the do were there times where you were ever questioning like, oh man, are we going down the right path here? Are like it, and then the second part of that question is, were there times where you got a little bit of feedback from a user, or something happened, or there's some type of a milestone that sort of reminded you at the time, okay, no, we're good. This is a good signal that we're onto something here. We'll keep going.
yeah, and I think it's all come on the business side, the kind of like, juggling.
Yeah.
And well, I guess that's not fair to say, because every time before I did that very first Instagram, like super hustler beta, through to the 200 beta, through to what we're doing, there's always that moment when I'm like, oh my gosh, the girls, they're not going to do this. They're not going to want this. This is going to be cringe, you know? So there's always been those moments for a minute regarding the pilot. But then as soon as we get into it, I'm always like, oh my gosh, it's working. This, it's great. And,
Yeah.
components of the product are what we developed with the first version of the U4U. Those four pillars were developed years ago, and they've held true, and they've been audited by psychologists and psychiatrists, that have really been aligned. So product wise, I'm so proud of what we've done, and it's really held the test. As far as like go to market, there's been a lot of like, with that, and not because of uncertainty, because there's so many potential routes. There's
Hmm.
so many opportunities to go. And the big divide for us is like, do we go the healthcare route or do we go the brand route? And when we speak to investors, they want us to be clear and distinct. But again, as an innovation and consultant or an innovation and growth expert, I'm like, we got to try both. But so we have been clear in terms of like, this is where we're starting, this is what we're
Yeah.
proving, this is what we're testing, and then if that doesn't work, we're going here, or if it does, or if we need to wait, we've understood with psychologists, we've had a huge interest in the medical space, but we need a clinical study. So it's like, okay, well, we're going to test these other routes there. But I'd say the most kind of ambiguity and adjusting and challenge has been more on the kind of marketing and business side and go to market side than the product side.
Hmm. Yeah. And when it comes to marketing or any of those like business decisions, and I bring up marketing because I think for companies at that stage, there's never like really a shortage of ideas of like stuff to go do and go try, and if
Sure.
you had all the time in the world, yeah, you probably
Oh,
could go out and figure out a lot of the marketing, because if you don't have a huge budget but you have a ton of time, like you can
oh
figure
yeah,
stuff out. but
definitely.
but I mean, that's almost laughable when you think about being a founder, like all this extra time that I have.
Oh
uh
yeah, biggest
how
commodity.
like how do you decide what not to work on or what not to try, because that's a pretty hard thing to figure out.
Yeah, and again, I mean that kind of comes from my background. It's I feel a lot of confidence in that space, and I literally do pull out some of the exercises I used to do for companies. I'll get a piece of paper and I'll write down
Yeah.
what's the potential market size, what's how much could I make here, how much is it going to cost to do it, how many restrictions and barriers are. I will literally like, and then I'll challenge myself and I'll stretch myself and think like, no, let's think of other options because I think it's human nature. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I think it's human nature. It's like the one that kind of sits in my mind first or sounds the funnest is the one that I kind of want to do. But then when I challenge myself to place it against other paths, I start to realize like, no, there's too many barriers there. It's just, let's break that down. Let's maybe start doing some of those things, but let's go for the like those low hanging cherries first.
Yeah, yeah. And then another question I love asking founders, because the answer can be all over the board. When it comes to marketing, I mean, because a lot of founders love building, they love, building the business, building the product,
Yeah.
sort of get in the weeds and just make sure that you're building the best possible product or solution. But okay, then it comes to like marketing or different types of sales or investor raising money. Like what's sort of your appetite or interest, or when it comes to the marketing, like is that something that you love doing, you dread doing, it's just sort of part of your day? Like what's your relationship with it?
Yeah. I guess it comes back to that time thing. If I had another set of hands and yeah, another patch of time, I enjoy marketing. I definitely do. I mean, I'd most enjoy working alongside an expert to do it,
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so yeah, I guess that's it. It's just not enough time,
yeah.
to do all of that. And then I realized like, okay, well, I'm doing this and I'm spending time on it, but it's probably not the best.
Hmm.
And, if somebody else who was more experienced doing it, it would be much better. And then I
Yeah.
could put my time where it's more valued.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's my perspective.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think you kind of put that in the category of the long list of all the different things that are needed for the business, and what do you have
Yeah.
time for? You have to prioritize, and you can only do so much.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think it's probably fits in a long line of other things that you're just kind of juggling as a founder.
Yes.
Um, when it comes
Exactly.
to growth though, and like looking forward and having um specific goals for growing the company,
Yeah.
how do you, just in a general sense, how do you think about growth, and thinking about growth and making decisions based on growth without kind of losing like the heart of like the mission of the company or the people you're already serving?
Yeah.
how much does that come up, and how much do you think about it?
Um, I mean, it definitely comes up because we are an impact corporation, impact organization. We definitely have mission alongside growth and revenue. Um, so that comes up. I think probably sometimes I get naive and have to remind myself, like if we bring on an investor, we need to make sure that they're very aligned and committed, and we need to find ways. And I've had some of our kind of investing advisors challenge me on that a lot. Like, how are you going to make sure that you're going to keep the integrity of the company as you grow? And I'm glad that they're doing that, because I think as a founder, that perfect image you made of just juggling a billion different things,
Mhm.
I could see, just moving along, seeing an opportunity, and having maybe not put as much time thinking in that, just naively having, some negative come out of growth. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I think for me, I'm grateful to have a few investing advisors who are quite active and keen to keep that focus there, and that intention.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, because I can see how as founders I mean, I'm quite a value centric person, but I've always been in business, and I also value
Yeah.
business. I value growth. I value scalability. Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
definitely a challenge though.
Yeah, and you talked about this already a little bit, like making those decisions and juggling a bunch of priorities. I didn't ask this at the very beginning, but what when I say your team, like what is your like? Have you had uh, close partnerships or people that you brought on to help with stuff? Like what? How have you kind of surrounded yourself with either advisors or people who are working more directly on the business over time?
Yeah, and I've built a pretty wide, strong web of support around that space. And early on, it started with advisors, clinical advisors, adolescent psychologists, adolescent dietitian, growth mindset, and coaching experts in that space. My co-founder is a master's in education, school psychologist, school counselor. And then we've brought in these investing advisors who bring expertise from technology through to education, and across that space. So, in addition to that, though, we have a youth entrepreneur in residence program. We have a youth advisory board, and those young people definitely impact all components of the product, but also our growth and our business strategy. And then we have made fantastic use of interns. So,
Yeah.
speaking of the marketing category, we have marketing interns, and it does make me extremely excited for the day that we have a larger budget to spend on marketing, because it does take a lot of work managing interns to
Hmm.
do things without the expertise. But yeah, that's been our kind of formula to be able to grow. And we've had many investors recognize that we've gotten to the state where we are today at about 1% of the cost that most companies would have spent to get to where we
Yeah.
are. So we've been extremely agile and extremely strategic in our growth. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
not
and
been.
that's something that I mean, a lot of clients that I work with probably would love to figure out how you did that, like just on the like marketing side of like finding good interns and figuring out the right
Yeah,
amount of time to have them focus on different things.
yeah,
Like how did you kind of navigate that? Because I know that that's not in addition to just like overseeing and sort of managing, but like just
yes,
figuring out where to have each person focus and how much time based on their interest and strength when they're probably uh, fairly junior or maybe working
yes.
on several different businesses. How did you sort of navigate that?
Yeah, and it is a very fine line between having an intern be helpful or just taking additional time, because yeah, but there's great opportunity there. And as a company that focuses on youth, it still has the added benefit of us for us of empowering young people and bringing them on the
Hmm.
team. But a few tips that I think could be useful, or that we've really learned along the way, are: one, to streamline the hiring and onboarding process as much as possible, because otherwise that can take a lot of time. So for
Yep.
example, we have a video that we use with interns when they come in and to hire them. We have a video to kind of onboard them. And then we also have a process to basically weed out is maybe not a positive term, but to kind of understand alignment and fit.
Yeah.
And so, we will give a few tasks early on, and you understand quite quickly whether an individual is motivated and effective in their delivery. And that has been a huge indication of success of them contributing to our goal and our mission and our growth. So,
Yeah.
we understand quite early through giving those particular tasks, if they turn them in on time, if they deliver on
Hmm.
time, what their quality of work is. And through that process, we have, one of the individuals supporting our team right now. I'm looking forward to bringing her on. I foresee her being within our company for years to come. She's
Yeah.
fantastic. So, yeah, there's a great opportunity with that to help people gain skill, to get kind of some of the busy work done,
Yeah.
but then also to understand, to create some relationships for future. We did a lot of internships with some computer science majors at Berkeley, and there's a few young people from that team, and also we have a partnership with RV University in India. There's a few people that we worked with from those programs, those interns, that I look forward to the day that I can hire them on, because there were some great talents
Hmm.
in that process.
Yeah, and not to get like too far in the weeds, but I think it would be very interesting to other founders. What were some of the like really specific tasks that you identified that say, hey, you know what, it would be great for an intern to sort of help in this area or own this task in some way? Like, what were some of the like the
Yeah,
really specific things?
sure. I can give some good examples for that. So I think compiling spreadsheets is great. So doing research, put
Hmm.
together a list of all the schools in this city, put together a list of all the local newspapers in this city. And then also content, to understand if they might have skill in creating content, whether that be for social media or for presentations or for curriculum. So giving them a task, letting them kind of run with it, with some basics, and then something I always love to do, and I always appreciate this when I'm working with somebody else, is we have sessions in between. So it's not like they spend tons of time doing something and then it's completely wrong. It's like we have a check-in point. So giving them a task and then having literally a 15-minute check-in point, not too far into the task. And again, if they show up to these meetings on time, if they've done what they said they would do on time, you start to understand if it's someone worth investing more of your time in to
Hmm.
train, to kind of spend on them. So yeah, so I think doing research, pulling together spreadsheets with key data, pulling together content, and presentations, or social media or otherwise. I think those would be the best. I mean, every founder needs those things.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Um, because again, I know for a fact there are a lot of founders out there right now struggling with like trying to navigate that exact challenge of, hey, we've got a lot to do and not a lot of time, and how do we be really efficient?
Yeah.
And so yeah, there's not never one like exact playbook, but just I think sometimes hearing ideas of what might have worked for another company is that can be
Yeah.
gold for some founders.
Yeah, and it's those simple tasks because they don't understand your product well. They don't understand your
Yeah.
customer yet. But
Yeah.
once they put together a flyer for you, all of a sudden they've kind of pulled together that information and you haven't had to spend the time talking about it again and again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Another question, I'm kind of maybe going backwards a little bit, but it's one that I just realized we didn't dive into at all. Is that when you had started the company or somewhere along the way, did the sort of revenue strategy, like how did you look at revenue and pricing and, I hate using the word monetizing, but like, how did you
Yeah,
think about the product
yeah,
of when it was going to be the right time to introduce that? How much were you going to play around with different strategies? Did you, or has it been fairly
absolutely.
consistent?
No, I mean, from day one, I've always considered, and as an entrepreneur, I always realize that's one of the things you have to think of immediately. And from day one, I also considered monetization, and I was testing it as well. I kind of mentioned early on going to different buyers. First of all, of course, it was understanding who could be the buyer, who
Hmm.
is a stakeholder, and I think this is the key question: is like, who is a stakeholder that this solution creates value for them. Like, not only that they need it or they want it, but like it's going to deliver on their goals, whether that's cost reduction or whether that's, with schools, it's increased levels of attendance. That's, they actually will pay you if you can increase their attendance. And, so it was a conversation like that. So I think it was like, of course, finding out who those key kind of payers are, what their key need is, and then how valuable that is to it, and trying to be as specific as possible in the conversation on those things. I mean, this has been a learning process as well, but
Hmm.
um, and then very early on, again, as I was interviewing girls and, shaping the product and defining the product, I was also interviewing potential payers and understanding who those would be. And this is something we're still doing, of course,
Hmm.
because you can have that conversation without the product, and then when you have the product, it's a different conversation. And then when you're talking about what the price is, it's a different conversation. So, um, yeah, I was just trying to have as many of those conversations as soon as possible and trying to get as granular as soon as possible. And yeah, if it's helpful, I can give an example.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so one, we understood, like, healthcare, and we talked about psychologists, and we thought, like, well, here's, we're doing mood and sleep checking. The girls are doing that, and they're doing these activities that are probably, are definitely helpful. So if there's already a girl who's already kind of struggling, again, we do love talking about being preventative, but if there's a young person that's already struggling, we can maybe help them. So I just went to Psychology Today online, found a phone number, I called a youth adolescent psychologist, and I was like, I have an app and this is what it does. And I imagine that'd be helpful to you because you could understand your patient's mood in between sessions, and you can have these homework activities that can. She was like, I love this. And I made 3 or 4 more calls, and that's all I was able to do because that took 2 hours, because the psychologists were answering and they were wanting to talk. They were wanting to see videos. They were wanting to jump online
Hmm.
right now and look at videos. So, I mean, that was a successful activity. There were other things I did that weren't successful, but I did understand. And then I talked to them about how much they would pay. I set up a pilot with one of them. We didn't have the product fully ready, but I pulled it together. I pulled together the report manually, that
Yeah.
she would be automatically getting in the future. But so, yeah, I think those for me were the kind of process.
Yeah. So in that example, that was not, the parents or the child, like that's not them paying, they're getting that as a
Yeah.
sort of benefit of working with a person who sort of understands the ROI of, like, if I have this for the people that I'm working with, that benefits me in these
Yeah.
different ways.
But some of those first calls that I had, I actually came to them prepared with a couple of different ways that the subscription could be paid. And I
Yeah.
said, maybe you could have parents pay it, and we would have a revenue share whereby, we would cover the cost,
Mm.
and you as, so it'd almost be an extra revenue stream for them. And I tested a few different options with those customers, those earliest conversations. And, I understood that they actually preferred what you just described now, paying the very small subscription fee as an added enhancement to their service and to
Yeah.
their outcomes. So,
Yeah.
yeah, but I think that that was useful for me in kind of coming to a few conversations very candidly, and they appreciated it and actually formed a nice relationship, being like,
Hmm.
look, I want to test these ideas with you.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. And that, I mean, to me, that's actually, um, every situation is different, but that's a much stronger, like, sales pitch, I think, or there's more confidence in the value of the product for that
Yeah.
person, to say, hey, we are so confident that this is going to provide you value and there's going to be return on your investment, that it's something that, you would purchase and you would get value in this way, versus, because with all clients and, different strategies of pricing and promotion and, all that stuff, like having something where you're giving somebody a sort of small, little kickback if they have their, customers do it, like there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just a much different type of pitch. So
Yeah.
yeah, to me that makes sense.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I wasn't 100. I actually thought they would prefer that method, but yeah, as you know that space, so you understood. Yeah, it was slightly different. But yeah, and I think going in, like you said, instead of kind of a true sales pitch, because when I've done those, they've not been nearly as successful as they have been, is when I go in as more of an inquiry
Yeah.
and, let's understand what
Yeah.
might work for you kind of conversation.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again,
Uh,
another one of those juggling balls, a salesperson with the marketing, with the
yeah.
product expert.
Yeah. But kind of sticking on this topic of
Yeah.
partnerships, that's a great example of, you have one, clinician or, maybe one small office, and they're sort of saying, oh yeah, we'll all get it and use it. And so that's a great sort of partnership.
Yeah.
Were there much bigger, larger, more complex partnerships that you explored that
Oh, yeah.
obviously took much longer to sort of get set up and have the right pitch, and there's much more at stake if it either works or doesn't work to some amount of your time.
Yeah.
How much of those did you explore? How deep did some of those go?
Yeah, early on, I had a wonderful call with like the head of behavior health at Kaiser. And, I really was keen on that because I love Kaiser. I'm a member.
Yeah.
And I use calm.com and my subscription is paid for by Kaiser. And, it's a value and Kaiser's so focused on prevention. So, indeed, she, everything she said about the product was like, yeah, exactly what I was hoping you would say. And, we also learned a lot about the need for kind of not only prevention, but for this segment of the population that is pre-prescribable. They're not at a level of severity that, it justifies either prescribing something or additional dedicated help. So I saw that there was huge opportunity there, but technically, I think we might have been a little early in having that conversation because we didn't have the product built, and so it's like lost a bit of momentum there.
Mhm.
But it was a huge validation and a huge, it is an opportunity for us as we continue to prove our impact and our engagement. Another one that I can share is with an employee benefits broker that we spoke to early on that loved what we're doing and said, I'm happy to take you around on all the road shows and introduce you to all of our HR departments because this is an employee benefit that they expressed that they were very confident that employers would like because employees are taking time away to manage the youth mental health crisis. And not only is it accounting for productivity loss amongst workers when they have to spend time with their young people, but it brings a lot of anxiety and stress to parents. And so having something that can help their families has been very helpful. So yes, that was one of the largest employee benefits provider of the state of California. So that was a very big opportunity, and it's actually something still that we have available to us, and we're looking
Mhm.
forward to fulfilling when our capacity can meet that level. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's great. And, like you kind of said, timing is everything. And you
Yeah.
also, and this is one of the things I find uniquely fun challenge of like in the Famtech space, you have most products and most services, you've got these like different paths. There's the different go to market, through insurance or employee benefits or local healthcare providers or
Yeah.
schools or different community organization. Like there's so many different opportunities and paths, and I think a lot of people could go, "Oh man, that's a bad thing," because how do we pick? Um, as companies evolve and as you try things, and like I said, timing is everything, and
Yeah.
you find the right ones eventually if you stick with it. So I'm always interested in how kind of founders navigate that.
Yeah.
And actually, that's probably a good segue to one of my last couple questions here is just kind of taking a big step back and thinking about your journey so far and where you're at with the company today, all the different things that you've sort of been through and tried. What are you like most excited about? The quote unquote next chapter of U4U and where things are going.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's different levels of that.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about just this next launch that we have. There's some added kind of community features in it that I'm really excited to give girls this product, to
Yeah.
give them this community. So I'm excited about that very much.
And
Um,
this is the mobile app that you're talking
Yep,
about? Yeah.
yep, that's coming into the App Store
Yeah.
in the middle of Feb. So,
Okay.
for our earliest users, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll be kind of doing. And I guess that's another thing. I'm excited to do a bigger launch, a little closer to summer,
Mhm.
and we're planning an event for that. And I think it's going to be super fun for girls and for other people that engage with girls and empower girls. Um, and then beyond that, I'm really excited about the AI story, about U4U's AI story, and I'm excited about that for one for multiple reasons. One of which is giving girls a safe community. Adolescent girls are the target of, like, I don't know, a very high number of predators online. 70, 80%. I've heard sometimes,
Yeah.
and so giving them a safe community, and that will be because of AI that we can utilize to keep them safe, is exciting to me. Also, being able to within U4U's app, we have girls engaging a lot. And we want to keep them safe and protected there, but we also have a lot of insights in terms of what their needs are, what the opportunities are. So there's data within U4U, and from an AI story, I think that's interesting, um, to be able to draw conclusions and draw insights to this segment that I feel has been unsupported for many, many years. And maybe
Mhm.
those insights can help us better support this group. I'm excited, even further on beyond that, to take U4U globally. Like I said, we have a partnership with a university in India, and we had about 15 young people come on our support us through those internships, and all of them are so anxious and excited for the day U4U can go to India and can share information with girls in that culture that don't have that information accessible to them. Key fem health concepts and menstruation and managing relationships and so forth. And same with Africa, or same with other developing countries. So, like, the
Yeah.
global story for you, if I let myself really dream beyond, is very exciting too. So
Yeah.
I think
Awesome.
from this earliest product launch to our, kind of global expanded launch, those all excite me equally.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, and I think if the mobile app is coming out, I think you said mid-February, is that?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Well, this episode will probably come out probably a little after that. So for anybody listening, they should go check it out.
Yes, and that will be earliest users. So yes, please check it out. But we'll say those will be our kind of beta testing users, and
Yeah.
but which we love the fact that we're a community, and all the girls in U4U and all the parents that we support, we recognize we're on a mission to empower, and so joining us with even some of our maybe early beta issues would probably still hopefully be supporting
Yeah.
in a positive experience.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, speaking of the mission, for anybody uh, listening, where all of this is resonating with them, whether it's a, a parent, a healthcare provider of some sort, other femtech company founder, investor, whoever it might be. What's just kind of the best way for them to follow along or support the work you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, our website or our Instagram, our LinkedIn page, U4U, on LinkedIn, or u4uteam.com, or team@u4uteam.com for an email address. Again, I'm Ila Marchetta, and I can be found on LinkedIn. And I would love to speak with any of those individuals, from families to investors to healthcare partners, or the works. Yeah, it's really exciting to join with other leaders in this space to deliver
Yeah.
something preventative and impactful and scalable.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I really appreciate it. Like I mentioned, we talked a few weeks ago. Enjoyed that kind of quick conversation, and love doing more of a deep dive and digging into the story and kind of your journey, and looking forward to following along. And hopefully we'll definitely stay in touch, and our paths will probably cross a number of times here in the near future. Hopefully.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dan. It's been such a pleasure. I really enjoy speaking with you and look forward to working together more. Yes.
All right, sounds good. Well, happy Friday. Have a great weekend, and
Thank
hopefully we'll
you.
talk soon.
Sounds great. Thank you.
All right.
Take
Bye
care.
bye.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.